Welcome to the recap of Essay 1. Thanks for submitting those. I enjoyed reading them and learning from them, and many of you offered insights into text that I hadn't considered before, and that's one of the joys of teaching a class like this. In this essay, I will highlight some things that were really well done in the essays. I will also offer some instruction on things that you might consider for Essays 2 and 3. The first place I want to start, though, is with the paragraph. The idea of what a paragraph kind of is and what it should do. And I'm going to use this kind of silly image of a cheeseburger, to talk you through that. This is an image that I often use when I teach about paragraphs. And it is sort of formulaic, but the major parts that this image conveys, I think, are parts that each of your paragraphs needs. A hamburger, cheeseburger has two buns, and it's got a bunch of stuff in the middle, depending on what you're interested in, what you enjoy in a cheeseburger. But the top bun should be your topic sentence. It should be a mini thesis, and I like how it puts it like that. The topic sentence needs to tell the reader in very precise terms how the information from this paragraph relates to the information from the previous paragraph and also the thesis. It does a big job. It's probably the most important single part of your writing outside of the thesis statement, and it's something that you should continue to work on. It's something that takes a long time to work on. I remember when I was in grad school getting my MA and my PhD, my dissertation advisor would constantly talk about topic sentences and how I needed to improve mine. So it's something that takes a long, long time. So you'll notice that the top of the cheeseburger is the thesis statement, or the topic sentence. The bottom is a kind of summary sentence, and everything in the middle is your analysis and your quotes, right? So if you notice on the right-hand side, it said your evidence quotes is all the kind of fixins that go on top of the burger. Your analysis is the meatier parts. That's what should take the most time. You draw quotes to establish that, yes, this is what the text is talking about, to look and work with particular language. But what we're all really here for is your analysis, right? So if the topic sentence directs the reader to understanding how the material in this relates to the thesis, then the middle of the burger is you kind of walking the reader through that analysis. So if the topic sentence is something about how Arnold Friend is a devil figure, then all the stuff in the middle will be kind of proving that he is that sort of figure. And then a lot of times we forget about this, but the last sentence of a paragraph is really important too. The last sentence of a paragraph sums up for the reader what they just learned. It also creates the opportunities to transition to the next paragraph, which I'll talk about in just a second. So that top bun, right, is important. The topic sentence has three major functions. It relates back to the thesis. It does not describe plot. That's something that you need to look out for. As you're revising, if you notice that your topic sentences are descriptive, that they describe what happens in the plot, you've got to add some kind of in order to, or ask yourself why or how. You need to get that topic sentence to be a little bit more argumentative rather than descriptive. It forecasts the paragraph's contents, and it transitions from the previous paragraph or idea, right? We need to remember that a paragraph is a unit of meaning. We group information together because it all belongs together. And basically what your topic sentence does is tells the reader why you've grouped this information together and what that does, what grouping that information together allows you to push the thesis forward, how it allows you to do that. The topic sentence also, like I was saying, will transition from the previous paragraph. And two ways to do that is through what are called logical and grammatical bridges. So a logical bridge will connect ideas. It will repeat a theme or a central idea or a concept. A grammatical bridge will repeat language. So if the last sentence in your paragraph, cheeseburger, ends with the idea of Arnold Friend being a devil, then you might have that word devil in the following paragraph as a grammatical bridge, right? As a way that the reader sees the through line or the continuity between your ideas. Further about paragraphing is that The paragraph, as I was saying, or the topic sentence should follow through the previous paragraph summary sentence. So as you're revising, once you've got your paper written, that's the time to really focus on your topic sentences and your summary sentences and really make the paper, as students say often, flow, right? So make that paper kind of draw those bridges and those connections between your ideas, between your paragraphs, and make it transition from a paper that you're using to figure out what you're saying to a paper that a reader can follow really interesting. And that's really how revision works. And I'll offer you a strategy down here. After you've got your paper written, I think that you should reread all your paragraphs and kind of get a sense of where the main idea is falling in the paragraph. Often when I'm reading students' work, the major idea will come at the end of the paragraph, even sometimes at the end of the essay, and that's perfectly okay. That just means you're still writing to figure out what you're saying rather than writing to really clearly communicate your ideas to the reader, right? If that's the case, then simply push that idea. If the major idea comes at the end of the paragraph, simply revise, move that idea up to the front, and then revise accordingly. It's more work, but it ends up with a paper that a reader can follow much more clearly. I've also said on many of your essays that the topic sentence should really serve as a mini argument. It can't be descriptive, as I said earlier, but also needs to demonstrate how the paragraph's contents contribute to the argument, right? So a topic sentence needs to be in your own words. A quote can almost never serve that purpose. It can never tell the reader exactly what this paragraph's contents will be doing, right? Because it's in someone else's words. We need the topic sentence to be in your words because you're the only one who knows the relationship between the paragraph and the thesis. So a tip I give you is, just like your thesis, your topic sentence should answer some version of why or how or in order to, something like that. Sorry about that. My dogs don't realize how cliche it is to bark at the mailman. But yeah, so your paragraph should always be a kind of self-contained unit. They should always have their kind of central claims and their support for that, but they really need to be also integrated into the whole. So one also revision strategy you might do is, once you've got your paper written, is to simply read the thesis statement and then read each topic sentence in succession without reading the rest of the paragraphs. That should give you a pretty good indication of how the paper is moving forward. And if you don't, as a reader, have a sense of how the paper is developing from doing that exercise, then you probably really need to rework those topic sentences. So I'll look at a few paragraphs that students submitted. As I said, I won't do any identifying information. I've got the red up here for the topic sentence, although this topic sentence does go into sentence 2 as well, and that's perfectly okay. And then the final sentence is the summary sentence. So interactions between Arnold and Connie is reminiscent of folklore's A Deal with the Devil, although this deal stems from coercion. This leads up to the first and most prominent way Arnold embodies a devil, his manipulative abilities. So this essay is about Arnold Friend as a devil figure, and this particular student is arguing that he's able to manipulate Connie because of the way that Oates uses stereotypical traits of devilish figures throughout her Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? Short story. And it works really well here. What I like about this topic sentence is that it uses a well-worn trope, A Deal with the Devil, but talks about how Oates changes that. So normally when we think about that trope or that common kind of device in literature and in songs and films, is that someone will willingly enter into a deal with the devil in those narratives. But in this one, Connie isn't really a willing participant in that at all. She's manipulated into it. I think that's a great analysis. And one of the reasons that this topic sentence works so well is because it is offering an argument, right? That this stems from coercion. That's really nice. And it falls within the kind of umbrella of the larger argument, is that his coercion is evidence that he is a devil figure. And I like that very much. The ending sentence, by sugarcoating a threat with an attempt at demonstrating how honest it is, I always tell the truth, as well as his use of the word promise and can, Arnold places a responsibility and inevitable blame on Connie for what would happen to her. Now this sentence sums up the whole paragraph quite well. And it also creates the opportunity for this student to transition in the next paragraph by repeating words like promise, by threat, any of these kind of grammatical bridges that this particular student wanted to use in the following paragraph. This is about the Virgin Suicides, but this particular paragraph begins, we can look at the narrative perspective as a starting point, as it does a lot to draw us in as a member of the Neighborhood Boys, but also a lot to draw us away from being a member of the Lisbon household. And this tension here between which community you might belong to as a reader when you see the we is that, yes, you are a member of the Neighborhood Boys, not a member of the Lisbon household. That's a central part of the narrative. So this is kind of like a little mini argument too, just like the last one was, and it works similarly well. This isn't the full paragraph, so I just drew out this particular section of this paragraph. When it comes to close reading, this is from an analysis of Diving into the Wreck by Adrienne Rich, and what I particularly like about this is talking about the Book of Myths, the loaded camera, the knife blade, the body armor, and this particular student offers a close reading of what those objects are, why those objects are so important. Right, on her dive, she carries a sharpened knife with her, suggesting that she may need to protect herself against violence. Alongside of her knife, she also has a camera to document the unseen past that lays hidden away. The Book of Myths here is symbolic as well, because it encompasses the modern day ways of thinking, such as what ideas are true, who should be in power, and other myths that erase the histories and experience of those who are not in power. So this particular student takes a few words from the poem and then extrapolates out within, but still grounds it in the poem of what these objects might mean and why they're so important and why Adrienne Rich chose to write about them. And I think this is a really nice close reading. You have this quote, and then look how much time the student takes unpacking that quote and analyzing why it's so important. So a few last things about writing paragraphs and things I noticed throughout your essays. Parenthetical citations, you need two elements for any MLA citation, the author's name and the page number. Now, if you name the author in the text, like according to John Berger, then you would just put 32 outside of the quote. But notice here that you've got the according to John Berger, and at the end of the quote, you have the parenthetical citation with the punctuation after it. Right, that's the correct way, right? If you do the name where you don't name it in the sentence, where you don't name the author in the sentence, you have whatever your quote is, and then let's say this was on 32 of John Berger's work. You have the parentheses, Berger, 32, end parentheses, and then punctuation, right? This is how it's supposed to be done. Some of you are putting the quote, the period here, etc. That's not where it goes. This isn't a huge deal, but it's just something to have in your mind, right? You should almost never use a paragraph number. Download the PDF, the article, use page numbers whenever possible, but sometimes paragraphs or numbers are essential, like in the Joyce Carol Oates story, but often not. And finally, avoid dropped quotes. A dropped quote is when a quote is an entire sentence, almost like a helicopter came by, right, with a quote dangling from a long wire and just dropped it into your paper. That's not what you want to do. You want to introduce your quotes. You want to lead into your quotes. You want to offer the reader context for how to understand that quote. So here's a drop quote from Day Tripper. Braz at the novel's end finally learns the importance of family. And then you notice how this quote is an entire sentence. The MLA's right? So on page 242, that's fine. But you never want a sentence to be an entire quote, an entire sentence to be a quote. That's called a dropped quote. Instead, try something like this. Braz at the novel's end finally learns the importance of family. Rather than focusing on his life, he instead focuses on relationships between family members, writing to his son that you're holding this letter, and then you can, fill in the rest of the quote. Now, this is part in red is what's different from the previous one and what makes it not a dropped quote, because you're introducing it and you're saying why it's important and offering the audience some context for understanding it. All right, y'all, hope this is useful. Please get in touch with any questions, and I hope you are having a real nice week.